Captain Ju Park stepped carefully through the overgrown ruins of the human outpost. The buildings, once sturdy research facilities, now crumbled under thick vines and moss. Helios 9's twin suns beat down, casting double shadows across the abandoned settlement. "How much longer will this survey take?" asked Do-Yeon Kim, her science officer. He wiped sweat from his brow as he cataloged specimens. "Starcore wants this area cleared by tomorrow." "We'll finish when we finish," Ju replied, pushing aside a curtain of hanging vegetation. "This was one of humanity's first outposts in this sector. We should show some respect." She stopped suddenly. In a small clearing stood a simple grave marker, somehow untouched by the planet's aggressive plant life. The area around it remained mysteriously clear, as if protected by an invisible boundary. Ju knelt beside the weathered metal plaque. She brushed away dust to reveal an inscription. "Anderson, T. Do-Yeon, come look at this," she called. Her science officer joined her, scanning the marker with his tablet. "Interesting. According to colony records, this outpost was abandoned 127 years ago during an emergency evacuation. So who was Anderson? And why was he left behind?" Ju wondered aloud. A soft chiming sound interrupted them. Ju turned to see several of the native Luminar approaching. The crystalline beings moved gracefully, their transparent bodies refracting sunlight into rainbow patterns across the ground. The tallest Luminar, with facets that shimmered blue-green, stepped forward. "I am Bright Song," he said, his translated voice melodic. "You have found the Savior's Rest." Ju bowed respectfully. "Can you tell us about this person?" The Luminar's colors shifted to deep purple. "We have guarded this place through many seasons. It is sacred to us." "Why?" Do-Yeon asked. "Who was Anderson?" Before Bright Song could answer, Ju's communicator buzzed. A holographic message appeared from Starcore Industries. "Captain Park, please confirm demolition schedule for tomorrow. Mining equipment is en route." Ju frowned and closed the message. "The company wants to clear this area for mining operations," she explained to Bright Song. The Luminar's body flashed with rapid color changes. "Alarm. The Savior's Rest must not be disturbed. Our stories say the one who sleeps here saved our entire people." More Luminar gathered, their bodies chiming in distress. An older Luminar with a complex crystalline structure floated forward. "I am Crystal Song, Elder of the Southern Cluster," she announced. "The human Anderson is honored among our people. When the great sickness came, when our children shattered like ice, he remained when others fled." Ju's communicator buzzed again. This time it displayed her supervisor's irritated face. "Park, why haven't you confirmed the schedule? This operation is worth millions. We can't delay because of some ancient ruins." "Sir, there's a human grave here. The natives consider it sacred ground." The supervisor sighed. "Move the remains if you must, but get it done. One old grave doesn't compare to the mineral deposits we found." After the call ended, Ju turned back to the Luminar elder. "Can you show me more about Anderson? I need to understand why this place matters." Crystal Song led them to a small cave where the walls glittered with embedded crystals. "These are our memory stones. They hold our history." The elder touched one crystal, and light spilled forth, forming images in the air. A human man working tirelessly in a makeshift laboratory, his face gaunt but determined. "He stayed when illness ravaged our clusters," Crystal Song explained. "He found the cure that saved us, but it was too late for him." Do-Yeon examined the projected images carefully. "That looks like he was developing a vaccine, and testing it on himself first." Ju stared at the faded image of Anderson, feeling a connection across the decades. "He sacrificed himself to save your species." "Yes," Crystal Song confirmed. "And now your people would destroy his resting place." Do-Yeon checked his tablet again. "There's no record of any family claiming his remains. No one ever came back for him." Ju stood in silence, contemplating the unmarked grave of a hero forgotten by his own kind, but revered by aliens. Her communicator buzzed once more with urgent messages from Starcore, but she ignored them. "If his own people won't honor him," she said finally, "then who should pay for his headstone? Who bears responsibility for remembering his sacrifice?" Do-hyun looked uncomfortable. "We have our orders, Captain." Ju-woo shook her head. "Some things matter more than orders. This man gave everything to save the Luminar. I won't let his grave be bulldozed for corporate profits." "What will you do?" Crystal Song asked. Ju-woo squared her shoulders. "First, I'm going to find out exactly who Thomas Anderson was. Then I'm going to make sure he's properly honored by humans and Luminar alike." Rain poured down on Helios 9 as Ju-woo hunched over the ancient data terminal. She had set up equipment in one of the least damaged buildings of the old outpost, powering it with portable generators. For 3 days, she had ignored increasingly angry messages from Starcore headquarters. "Any luck?" Do-hyun asked, entering with containers of food. He placed one beside Ju-woo, who barely looked up from her work. "I found something," she said, pointing to the screen. "Look at this." Colony records show Thomas Anderson was a xenobiologist. He specialized in alien diseases. The screen displayed a personnel file with a faded image of a serious-faced man with kind eyes. His service record showed postings on 4 different frontier worlds before Helios 9. It says here he requested to stay behind during the emergency evacuation. Ju-woo continued. His request was denied, but he remained anyway. "So he disobeyed orders," Do-hyun noted. "To save the Luminar," Ju-woo reminded him. His final official transmission stated he was close to developing a treatment for the plague affecting them. Her communicator buzzed again. This time, she answered. The angry face of Director Jo-won appeared. "Captain Park, this is your final warning. Resume your assigned duties immediately. The demolition crews arrive tomorrow. Your career is on the line." Ju-woo met his gaze steadily. "Sir, I've discovered information that changes things. The human buried here saved an entire species. Doesn't that deserve recognition? One rogue scientist doesn't alter our plans. This is a billion-credit operation. Move the remains if you must, but clear that site." The transmission ended abruptly. Ju-woo stared at the blank screen, then turned to Do-hyun. "I need to see the Luminar elders again." They trekked through the rain to the crystal caves where the Luminar gathered. Inside, dozens of the crystalline beings floated in a large circle, their bodies glowing softly in the darkness. Crystal Song approached as they entered. "You seek more knowledge of the Savior," she said. "Yes," Ju replied. "I need to understand exactly what Anderson did. It may be the only way to protect his grave." Crystal Song led them deeper into the cave to a chamber filled with memory crystals. She touched one, and images formed in the air, scenes of Luminar falling ill, their crystalline bodies turning dull and cracking. "The sickness came quickly," Crystal Song explained. "It affected our young first. Their bodies would lose color, then begin to crack, then shatter entirely." The images shifted to show Anderson working frantically in his lab, testing samples, making notes. The other humans feared the sickness would spread to them. They left in their skyship. But Anderson stayed. He said he could not abandon a sentient species to extinction. The projection showed Anderson growing visibly weaker as time passed. In the final images, he was pale and thin, barely able to stand. He discovered that the sickness was caused by a microorganism that affected our crystalline structure. Crystal Song continued. "He created a treatment, but to test it, he had to simulate our biology in his own body. He injected himself with crystal compounds." Do-hyun whispered, understanding dawning on his face. "That would have been extremely painful for a human." "Yes," Crystal Song confirmed. "The treatment worked. He saved our children, our future. But the crystal compounds poisoned his human form. As he died, he asked only that we remember him." Ju-woo watched the final projection, Anderson, clearly dying, teaching the Luminar how to produce the treatment themselves. His last act was one of education, ensuring they could protect future generations. And no humans ever returned for him. Ju asked. A few research ships came over the years, Crystal Song said. They took samples and left. None asked about the human who stayed behind. When they emerged from the cave, Ju found several messages waiting. One was from Starcore's Public Relations Department, expressing concern about potential native unrest. Another was from her supervisor, threatening immediate termination. The final message was different, a response to inquiries she had sent to the Central Archives on Earth. It contained a single line: "No living relatives of Thomas Anderson, xenobiologist, ID #7729B, have been registered in the past century." Do-young looked at her questioningly. "What will you do now?" Ju stared at the simple grave in the distance, rain falling around it in a perfect circle, as if some force still protected Anderson's rest. "I'm going to make this bigger than Starcore," she decided. Anderson has no family to speak for him, no one to claim his remains or honor his sacrifice, so I'll become his advocate. "That's career suicide," Do-young warned. "Maybe," Ju agreed, "but someone needs to answer the question. When a human dies saving aliens, who should honor their memory? If not us, then who?" She activated her communicator and sent a message to the Interstellar Heritage Commission. "Request immediate review of cultural significance site on Helios 9. Human scientists grave venerated by native species for 127 years. Demolition imminent." As she sent the message, the Luminar began to gather around Anderson's grave, their bodies glowing brightly against the dark storm. The Interstellar Heritage Commission's response was swift but disappointing. A serious-faced official named Ji-hoon appeared on Juwoo's communicator screen. "Captain Park, while we appreciate your concern for historical preservation, this case falls outside our jurisdiction. Without family claims or established historical significance documentation, we cannot intervene in Starcore's legal development rights. But an entire alien species considers this grave sacred," Ju protested. "Anderson saved them from extinction." "Admirable, certainly," Ji-hoon replied with practiced diplomacy, "but personal heroism, however impressive, does not automatically qualify for protected status. I'm sorry." After the call ended, Ju sat quietly on a fallen beam near Anderson's grave. The demolition ships would arrive tomorrow. Starcore had officially suspended her, but she remained at the site, refusing to leave. Do-young approached, his face grim. "The company sent official termination notices. We're both fired if we don't clear out by morning." "So be it," Ju said. "I can't abandon this." Her communicator chimed with an incoming message. She expected another corporate threat, but instead found a transmission from an unfamiliar source. The sender identified as Galactic News Network. "Captain Park, I'm reporter Min-ju Han. Your story about the human scientist and the Luminar has spread across 3 sectors. We'd like to interview you about the Headstone debate." Ju blinked in surprise. "The what?" "That's what people are calling it," Min-ju explained. "Who should pay for a hero's headstone when he dies saving an alien species?" It sparked quite the ethical discussion. Within hours, the quiet outpost became the center of an interstellar conversation. Juwoo's communicator couldn't keep up with incoming messages. Representatives from a dozen species sent their thoughts. The Aldar, ancient allies of humanity, issued a formal statement. "The honoring of those who sacrifice for other species is a universal obligation that transcends cultural boundaries." The Meridian Council disagreed. While admirable, each species must care for their own dead according to their own traditions. Interfering with human burial customs would be disrespectful. Even the reclusive Taeyang collective weighed in. The scientist Anderson created a bridge between species. His memorial should reflect this connection. Juwoo gave interviews to 3 different news networks. Each time, she emphasized the same point. Anderson died alone, thinking no one would remember him. Yet an alien species has honored him for over a century while his own people forgot him. Starcore Industries, surprised by the sudden publicity, changed tactics. Their public relations officer, Hyjin, arranged an emergency meeting with Juwu. "We understand the unique situation," Hyjin said smoothly. "Starcore is prepared to fund a proper memorial before proceeding with our operations. We could name the mining facility after Anderson." Juwu didn't hide her disgust. "You want to put his name on the very operation that will destroy the world he died protecting. This isn't about money or public relations. It's about respect." The controversy grew. 17 ships entered orbit around Helios 9, representatives from various species requesting permission to visit what was now being called the Savior's Grave. Among the visitors was Professor Minho from Earth's Historical Society. He examined Anderson's recovered research journals with reverence. "These are historically priceless," he told Juwu. "Anderson documented the first successful human intervention in an alien pandemic. His methods were revolutionary." "Then why was he forgotten?" Juwu asked. Minho looked embarrassed. "The evacuation happened during the colonial conflicts. Many records were lost. By the time peace returned, this outpost was considered abandoned territory." The Luminar watched the growing commotion with confusion and hope. Crystal Song approached Juwu as visitors from 7 worlds examined Anderson's simple grave. "We did not expect others to care about the Savior," she said. "We thought only we remembered." "Sometimes it takes a crisis to remind people of what matters," Juwu replied. On the day the demolition ships were scheduled to arrive, something unexpected happened. A Starcore executive shuttle landed instead. CEO Min-Soo Kang himself disembarked, looking uncomfortable in the humid Helios atmosphere. "Captain Park," he said stiffly, "it seems you've created quite a situation." "I just asked a question that needed answering," she replied. Min-Soo surveyed the gathering of multiple species around the grave. News drones hovered, broadcasting the scene across human space and beyond. "Our board of directors has reconsidered the development timeline for this region," he announced carefully. "In light of the cultural significance that has emerged, we are prepared to discuss alternatives." "What kind of alternatives?" Juwu asked. "Perhaps a compromise can be reached. A memorial preserve around the gravesite, with development proceeding in other areas." Before Juwu could respond, a delegation of alien representatives approached. They called themselves the Anderson Committee, volunteers from 23 species who had traveled to Helios 9 after hearing the story. Their spokesperson, a blue-skinned Aldar, addressed both Juwu and the CEO. "This question has grown beyond one company's mining rights or even one human's grave. It touches on how all sentient beings honor sacrifice across species boundaries." Min-Soo looked increasingly uncomfortable as cameras recorded everything. "Perhaps," he suggested, "we should discuss this more privately." Juwu shook her head. Anderson died thinking he was forgotten. Everything about his memory should be public now. She turned to address the gathered species. "The question remains, who should pay for this man's headstone? Who bears the responsibility for remembering him?" The debate that followed would change interstellar relations forever. The Anderson Committee grew larger each day. Ships from 30 different worlds now orbited Helios 9, and the simple outpost area had become a bustling camp of tents and temporary structures. News networks broadcast continuous updates on what they called the Headstone question. Juwu walked through the camp, amazed at what her simple stand had created. Beings of all shapes, sizes, and compositions gathered in discussion groups. Some floated in the air, others moved on multiple legs, and some rolled rather than walked. "Captain Park," called a voice. Juwu turned to see Professor Minho hurrying toward her, waving a tablet. "We found more of Anderson's research journals in the ruins. You need to see this." They sat in Juwu's tent as Minho displayed the recovered files. Anderson's face appeared in a video log, thin and tired but determined. "Day 212 of isolation," Anderson said in the recording. "The modified vaccine is working. The youngest Luminar children show signs of recovery. Their crystal structures are regaining proper formation. He coughed, and Jiwoo could see the unnatural blue tinge to his skin. The process of synthesizing the cure requires me to incorporate Luminar biological compounds into my own system. The side effects are significant. The log continued, showing Anderson's health declining as the Luminar recovered. His final entry was barely audible. The Luminar will survive. Their next generation is safe. They don't understand death as we do. They speak of returning to the light. Perhaps that's comfort enough. I only wish someone from home might someday know what happened here. Jiwoo wiped tears from her eyes. He knew he was dying alone. But he wasn't forgotten, Minho said softly, just not by his own kind. Outside, the committee members had begun a new activity. Each species brought forward materials for Anderson's memorial. The Aldar contributed a stone that would burn with eternal flame. The Meridians offered water crystals that would never evaporate. The Taiyang brought metal that changed color with the emotions of those who touched it. Doyan tracked the offerings on his tablet. 37 distinct contributions so far, he reported. Each represents a different world's tradition of honoring the dead. Tarkor's CEO Minsu had not left as planned. Instead, facing enormous public pressure in the presence of so many influential species, he had pivoted completely. Starcore Industries recognizes the profound importance of this site. He announced at a press conference, "We are prepared to fund whatever memorial is deemed appropriate, no matter the cost." Jiwoo watched the announcement with skepticism. Now he wants to be seen as the savior of Anderson's memory. That evening, representatives from all present species gathered for a formal debate. The central question remained unchanged. Who should pay for Anderson's headstone? Who bore responsibility for honoring him? The Aldar representative spoke first. In our tradition, when one sacrifices for many, all who benefit share equally in honoring the sacrifice. The Meridian delegate disagreed. The human Anderson followed human customs. His species should determine how he is remembered. A Taiyang glowed brightly as it responded. But his actions transcended species boundaries. His memorial should reflect this universal connection. The debate continued for hours. Some argued for a simple human burial stone. Others proposed grand monuments. Religious representatives debated the spiritual implications of cross-species memorial practices. Throughout it all, the Luminar watched silently, their crystalline bodies reflecting the lights of the gathering. Finally, Jiwoo stood. The crowd fell quiet. "I've listened to everyone," she said. "You all want to honor Anderson in your own ways. But I've been thinking about what he actually did. He didn't just save the Luminar. He created understanding between species who had never truly connected before." She walked to the center of the gathering. Anderson's journals show he believed deeply in the value of all sentient life. He didn't see the Luminar as aliens to be studied, but as people worth saving, even at the cost of his own life. Jiwoo looked around the circle of diverse beings. So perhaps the memorial shouldn't come from any one species or organization. Perhaps it should come from all of us together, the first truly interspecies monument. The crowd murmured in consideration. The Luminar Elder Crystal Song floated forward. "In our tradition," she said, "we do not mark endings but transformations. We preserve memories in light." "In human tradition," Jiwoo replied, "we mark a grave so the person is never forgotten. So there is always a place where they are remembered." From the back of the gathering, a new voice spoke. An ancient Aldar stepped forward, leaning on a staff of twisted metal. "Perhaps," the elder said, "what we need is something new. Not human, not Luminar, not any single tradition, but something that represents what Anderson created, connection across the stars." For the first time since the debate began, all voices agreed. That night, under Helios 9's moons, representatives from 30 species began designing something unprecedented, a memorial that would incorporate elements from dozens of worlds, honoring not just Anderson, but the idea he died for. 1 month after the debate began, a new structure stood where Anderson's simple grave marker had once been. Unlike any monument in known space, it combined elements from 34 different worlds. Anderson's original marker remained at its center, preserved in a transparent dome made from aldar crystal. Rising around it, a formation of living luminar crystal caught and transformed light into patterns that told Anderson's story without words. The crystal changed colors throughout the day, shifting from deep blues at dawn to bright gold at midday and soft purple at sunset. Around the base, inscriptions in 27 languages offered variations on a single message: for the one who remained. The night before the dedication ceremony, Juwu stood alone before the monument. Starcore's mining operations had been relocated to another continent, leaving the outpost area as a permanent sanctuary. CEO Minsu, recognizing both the public relations value and the genuine significance of what had occurred, had established the Anderson Fellowship for Cross-Species Medical Research. "I wish you could see this," Juwu said quietly to the memorial. "You thought you died alone and forgotten. Now you've brought together species that had never even spoken to each other before." Do-hyun approached, carrying a small stone box. "This just arrived from Earth. Professor Minho sent it." Inside the box lay a simple river stone from Anderson's birthplace in the northern hemisphere of Earth, a place he had not seen in over a century. "The final piece," Juwu said, placing the stone gently beside the original marker. At dawn, representatives from 34 species gathered for the dedication ceremony. News networks broadcast the event throughout known space. The luminars surrounded the monument, their crystalline bodies glowing with internal light. Elder Crystal Song spoke first. "When the Savior came to us, we were strangers to each other. He could not understand our light speech, and we could not comprehend his solid form. Yet he saw us as worthy of saving." The Aldar elder raised his staff. "In our oldest texts, there is a saying: the debt owed to one who saves life cannot be repaid by any single soul." The Meridian representative added, "Today we establish a new tradition, one that honors sacrifice across the boundaries that once divided us." When Juwu's turn came to speak, she looked out at the gathered beings. Some breathed air, others water, some required no atmosphere at all. Yet all had come together for this moment. The question that started all this was simple: who should pay for this man's headstone? She said. The answer turned out to be more profound than I expected. Not any one person, species, or corporation, but all of us together. She gestured to the monument. "This is not just Anderson's memorial. It's a reminder that compassion transcends all differences. He didn't save the Luminar because they were like him. He saved them because their differences didn't matter when faced with the value of their lives." As the ceremony continued, something unexpected happened. The Luminar began to glow more intensely, their light combining with the memorial crystal. A beam of pure white light shot upward from the monument, visible even in daylight, and certainly from orbit. "What's happening?" Do-hyun whispered. Crystal Song's body pulsed with joy. "It is the highest honor our people can give. We are adding his memory to the great light." The beam continued throughout the ceremony, and afterward, scientists discovered it would return every year on the anniversary of Anderson's death. Ships in orbit reported the light was visible from space, a beacon marking not just a grave, but a new understanding between worlds. In the years that followed, the Anderson Memorial became a site of pilgrimage for both humans and aliens. Schools brought students to learn about the man who had bridged worlds. Medical researchers came to study his groundbreaking techniques. Religious leaders contemplated the spiritual implications of sacrifice across species boundaries. 5 years after the dedication, Juwu returned to Helios 9. Now a professor of xenoanthropology, she had led the effort to establish what became known as the Anderson Principle, that the honored dead of any species were the responsibility of all sentient beings. She stood before the memorial, which had grown more beautiful as the living crystal matured. Visitors from a dozen worlds quietly contemplated the monument. "Did you ever imagine this?" asked Do-hyun, who had joined her for the journey. Not at all, Ju admitted. I just couldn't bear the thought of him being forgotten. A young luminar floated nearby, its crystalline form still small and developing. Is this where the human hero sleeps? It asked. Yes, Ju smiled. This is where Thomas Anderson rests. And many remember him now. Many, she confirmed, from worlds he never even knew existed. The light beam appeared again as the sun set, reaching up toward the stars, a permanent reminder that no one who changes the universe truly dies alone.